as our pastor mentioned, I'm running for the U.S. Senate, but I don't want to speak to you this morning as a candidate. I want to speak to you this morning as a fellow Christian. My granddad was a Baptist preacher in South Texas, and when I was little, he told me that Christianity is a simple religion. Not an easy religion, but a simple religion. Because Jesus gave us 2 commandments: love God and love neighbor. Many of my colleagues in the Texas legislature are so focused on the 10 that they've forgotten about the 2. We as Christians are called to love all of our neighbors. Not just our neighbors who look like us, not just our neighbors who vote like us, not just our neighbors who pray like us. We are called to love every single one of our neighbors. Jesus could have told us to love our immediate family members. He could have told us to love our close friends. Those would have been easier commandments to follow. But he told us to love our neighbors, and that's inherently a public thing. It's what led me to public service. First as a public school teacher, now as a public official. On my first day in office, I put my hand on our family Bible and I swore an oath to the Constitution, not the other way around. I'm a Christian, but I know that the most dangerous form of government is theocracy, because the only thing worse than a tyrant is a tyrant who thinks they're on mission from God. My faith in Jesus leads me to reject Christian nationalism and commit myself to the project of a multiracial, multicultural democracy where we can all freely love God and fully love our neighbors. In this morning's gospel reading, after Jesus teaches us to love our neighbor, a lawyer pipes up and asks them to define neighbor. It's always the lawyers. And Jesus responds with a story about a man who was beaten and left for dead on the side of the road. A priest walks by and does nothing. A religious leader walks by and does nothing. And then a Samaritan walks by. Now, for Jesus' listeners, the Samaritans were not just a different religious group. The Samaritans were their sworn enemies. But in Jesus' story, the Samaritan stops, bandages the man's wounds, takes him to an inn, nurses him back to health, and then pays the innkeeper to look after him. In Jesus' story, salvation comes from the heretic, from a religious enemy. The parable of the Good Samaritan is about a lot more than helping people on the side of the road. It is a shocking definition of neighbor. It's as if Jesus stood in the middle of the Jones and told a story called The Good Longhorn. I can say that because I'm a longhorn. The person who embodies divine love is the outsider, the outcast, the enemy. And in Jesus' story, it's a religious enemy. I think it's a reminder that our neighbor love has to transcend religious boundaries. One of my favorite theologians, Barbara Brown Taylor, wrote, "The only clear line I draw these days is this: when my religion tries to come between me and my neighbor, I will choose my neighbor. Jesus never commanded me to love my religion." America is not a Christian nation. It is a nation where you are free to be a Christian, or a Buddhist, or a Hindu, or a Jew, or a Muslim, or a Sikh, or an agnostic, or an atheist. America was started by religious minorities fleeing religious persecution. That's the promise of America, a multiracial, multicultural melting pot. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. It's a promise that we are still struggling to fulfill today. It's a promise to love our neighbors as ourselves. The separation of church and state in our First Amendment is a profound act of loving thy neighbor. Some politicians say they want a Christian nation until it comes to providing health care for the sick, or food assistance for the hungry, or raising the minimum wage for the poor. They say they want to base our laws on the Bible until they read the words of Jesus. Welcome the stranger, liberate the oppressed, put away your sword, sell all of your possessions and give the money to the poor. Instead of posting the 10 Commandments in every classroom, why don't they post money is the root of all evil in every boardroom? Why don't they post do not judge in every courtroom? Why don't they post turn the other cheek in the halls of the Pentagon? Why don't they post it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange? Because they're not interested in legislating Christian values. They are only interested in legislating Christian dominance. Jesus wasn't interested in indoctrinating the powerless. He was interested in challenging the powerful. But Christian nationalism isn't about Jesus. It's about power. You know, as I look around our country today, I am reminded of 1 John, where it says that you can't love God and hate other people. You can't love God and abuse the immigrant. You can't love God and bully the outcast. You can't love God and oppress the poor. Sometimes we're so busy looking for God out there that we miss God in the person sitting right next to us, in that neighbor who bears the divine image. In the face of a neighbor, we glimpse the face of God. Matthew 25 tells us exactly how you and I, as Christians, are going to be judged and how we're going to be saved. By feeding the hungry, by healing the sick, by welcoming the stranger. There's nothing about being a Christian. There's nothing about reading the Bible. There's nothing about going to church. Just helping others. Just loving. Sometimes I wonder what Jesus would do if he visited the U.S. Capitol. I think he would say, "Depart from me, for I was hungry, and you cut my food assistance. I was sick, and you kicked me off Medicaid. I was a stranger, and you deported me and my family." And then I think he would flip over their fancy desks and demand that we take care of all our neighbors, especially the least of these. Amen. Sometimes we religious people are more concerned with the afterlife than this life. Amen. But Jesus said, on earth as it is in heaven. Think about that. On earth as it is in heaven. Can we imagine poverty in heaven? Can we imagine bigotry in heaven? Can we imagine war in heaven? Then why do we tolerate these things on earth? Jesus said he was the light of the world. He also said we, you and I, are the light of the world. And in a time of shadows, we must, each of us, shine our light. I know things are dark right now. Like many of you, I'm tempted by hopelessness. And when I'm feeling despair tug at me, there's a verse in the Gospel of Luke that I return to. It's when Jesus says, "Blessed are you who weep." It's a strange verse, because how can someone who's weeping be considered blessed? In our culture, in this country, we tend to avoid grief. But I think we forget that grief can be fertile soil. Sometimes we see the world most clearly through our tears. So if your heart is breaking right now, as you watch what's happening in our beloved country, it means you still have a heart. And I want you to trust that. I want you to protect that. Because that is what's going to get us out of all of this. So blessed are you who weep. Thank you for having me here this morning. Thank you for welcoming us. It means more than you know. God bless you. Thank you.